Labdien visiem! Paldies par jūsu laiku, ka atradāt iespēju pievienoties LATA lietas TÄJAS laikā pasākumam. Tā kā mums ir samērā daudz dalībnieku no citām valstīm, jo Zabbix ir, kā jūs zināt, starptautisks uzņēmums, tad pasākums notiks angļu valodā. Hello everyone, and thank you for your time and for joining us. Today we have a LATA matters during tea time, as we call our series of events. And today we have Mr. Alexei Vladishev speaking. Before he starts, I would like to do a short introduction about LATA. LATA, or Latvian Open Technology Association, is leading IT association in Latvia, and since we started about 12 or 13 years ago, our focus was always being open standards, open technology, and lately we strive to talk more about benefits of using open technology, and that's why we are inviting speakers to talk about it. And I think that Zabbix is perfect example what an entrepreneur can achieve using open source software and open technology. So Zabbix has built basically a worldwide known brand used in many countries and respected by their partners and also competitors. So with that, I would like to finish my short introduction and give the floor Mr. Vladishev. So Alexei, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Yeah, paldies, Yanni. Yeah, thank you very much for the nice introduction, for your kind words. Well, just give me a few seconds so I can share my screen.
Yeah, we can see your presentation.
All right, thank you very much. Yeah, so well, once again, it's a great pleasure to be here today and to talk about the open source and Zabbix in particular. I think nowadays open technologies, open protocols, open standards, and open software and a free software plays increasingly important role. And maybe at the very beginning of my talk, I would like to give you maybe a quick introduction to what is free and open source software, and maybe what's kind of a difference between free software and a proprietary software. And also today, I would like to basically explain how to make a business with the open source and what kind of business models exist at the moment. And of course, I will talk about Zabbix as an example of the company which is on top, which is built on top of open source software. So maybe for those of us who are not very technical, I'll try to explain the importance of the software and what is the software. Actually, the software is just a set of instructions. Software is made by people, and software is running on different devices. Software that is what is controlling different devices, like a laptop, or maybe the microphone, or maybe now we are communicating over Zoom and the live streaming goes to the Facebook. It's all thanks to the software, to a very sophisticated software which is running basically everywhere, on our computer, on our phones, on a very low powered devices, on a servers or network devices. The software is everywhere. And actually, I would say that software now is the blood of the internet. Yeah, so internet wouldn't happen without software, and basically vice versa. So what is free software? And Richard Stallman defined free software, and free software means Richard Stallman is one of the fathers of the free software, and he put it very well. The free software means software that respects users' freedom and community. And actually, the free software is a matter of liberty, not price. And to understand the concept, you should think of free as in a free speech, not as in a free beer. So it's a very common misconception that free software is something that comes at no cost. Yeah, but it's very wrong understanding of the free and open source software. So free and open source software is all about freedoms. It's all about freedom. So when you use a free software, it means that you use some freedoms which comes with the software. And actually, the free software comes with the 4 essential freedoms. Freedom to run the program as you wish for any purpose. And if you compare it to a proprietary software, when you use a proprietary software, in many cases, you're limited to how you can use it, for what purpose. For example, this software is only for a personal use, so you cannot use it for, I don't know, for commercial purposes. Yeah, it's all written in so-called end-user agreements. When you start using software, in most cases you're accepting end-user agreements. So with the free software, we can run the program, the free program, as we can on any computer as we want. And also we have also a freedom to study how program works and change it so it does your computing as you wish. Yeah, it basically means that, and actually it assumes that the source code of the software is available. It's available so we can study how it works. And actually, it's a very good example why free software is a perfect candidate for studying, for universities, for schools. So the code is available so we can learn and we can understand how system works, how it works, how it operates, because we have source code available. And of course, the free software, that is something that it comes with the right to redistribute copies. So for example, if I use a free software like a Linux, yeah, I can easily share it with a friend of mine. I can easily share with my family members, with anyone in the world. It's absolutely legal. It's absolutely fine. And it's actually encouraged by developers of the free software. And also, if you can make also some modifications of the software, if you want to improve it for some reason, you see that the software is not maybe sufficient for your needs, so you may improve it. You can add some new features and maybe new functionality. And if it's a real free software, then you can distribute the modified version of the software you just extended. Okay, so the free software, and it's really important to understand, it's all about freedom. It's not about cost, but actually the free software, it also comes at no cost because of those freedoms. It's just the consequence, a lucky consequence that we have those freedoms. So free software is also no cost software. Well, I will give you just maybe a few examples of the famous open source projects and how they started. So Linux, I think you all, probably most of you, are aware of the Linux. What is Linux? I think this is the most famous open source project nowadays. And it's all started in the last century, 90s, by the 22 years, a student from Finland. Yeah. So he wrote maybe first version of the operating system, a very draft, maybe a very new, and then he just shared result of his work with other guys, with other people. He just sent this email saying basically, hey guys, I just wrote operating system. Well, I know it's absolutely something not very serious, but have a look. Yeah, have a look and tell me what you think. And this is how Linux started. So just one engineer, a student actually, he just shared the result of his work. and he allowed other people to contribute, to extend his program. And nowadays, Linux is basically the #1 operating system in the world. Yeah, so the most companies, the big enterprise companies, they all use Linux, servers, clouds, network devices. Well, Android is based on the Linux. For example, if we, for example, if you look at some network devices, like for example the MikroTik, the MikroTik routers and switches, so the operating system which runs on MikroTik, or maybe Cisco devices like iOS, maybe some Juniper devices, it all has its roots in Linux. Yeah, so it's very powerful concept. So I will give you, okay, maybe not all of you are aware of Linux, because Linux is operating system. It's all about kind of infrastructure, but there are some other, maybe more well-known examples of the free and open source software. And actually, when I talk free, I refer to free as a free and open source software. So Linux, the most famous operating system, I think Blender. Blender is a very powerful 3D modeling tool for professional, but not only for professional. For example, my 12-year son, he used Blender to do some basic 3D modeling. And actually, the software Blender is used by many Hollywood studios for movie production, for production of animated, well, basically cartoon movies. LibreOffice is a replacement of a Microsoft Office. Yeah, so actually you have a spreadsheet, you have a text editor, you have also the tool for presentation, again, absolutely for free as part of the free software. GIMP, it's just a replacement of a Photoshop. Yeah. Not really a replacement. When I speak about replacement, I refer to the fact that you may do things that the commercial vendor can do, commercial software can do. GIMP is all about editing of the images of your photographs, for example. The Chromium, Firefox, very well-known browsers. The TäJAS is a tool that keeps your passwords in a secure way. And also there are lots of infrastructure software, like different databases like MySQL, MongoDB, Postgres, also Zabbix is here, web browsers like Apache, Kafka, this is kind of enterprise messaging system, and much more. This is just a tip of the iceberg of the universe of the free software. So I would say that actually many companies, they stand on the shoulders of the free software. Yeah, they wouldn't exist if there is no free software. The companies like Facebook, Dropbox, Google, Azure, AWS, Amazon, they all use free software extensively. And I would say that if there is no free software, then the license cost of the kind of a proprietary software would be prohibitive for these companies to scale. They wouldn't be able to scale without access to the free software, like web browsers, like a Linux operating system, like free databases, free messaging systems, and so on. Well, nowadays, I think the proprietary software is no longer the first choice, especially if you are a startup company. So if you're a startup company, of course, the cost of the infrastructure is super important. And if you want to scale fast, you don't want to restrict yourself. Of course, the open source and free and open source is your first choice. So you would probably use Linux. You would probably build your application on top of free databases like Postgres or MySQL. You would use Redis, like a queue system. You would probably use some free web servers, free development tools, some languages. So this is actually the first choice right now, use of free and open source. And it makes absolutely tons of sense from a commercial point of view. Now let's talk about Zabbix. So I will tell you a very brief history of Zabbix. Somewhere in 90s, I've been working as a system administrator in one of the commercial banks here in Riga. And my responsibilities included, I've been a system administrator. So I was managing different systems like a big Unix machines, maybe a few proprietary databases. And of course, being a human, I really wanted to automate my work. Yeah. So initially, it's all started with some very basic scripts, maybe. So I wrote some scripts that would do some work for on my behalf, basically. Yeah. And then after some time, it's all turned into my hobby project. I rewrote everything from scratch using the different design and different technologies. And after a few years of development in 2001, the first public, I released Zabbix for the first time. So my project got the name Zabbix. And actually, it was quite a tough decision for me. I wasn't 100% sure about releasing Zabbix as open source, maybe not, because I really put so much effort into Zabbix, so much time. It was a little bit kind of a risky decision for me, yeah, because it's like about giving away result of your work for free. But at the end, I made this decision. I released Zabbix at exactly the same license as the Linux, GPL v2 license. So Zabbix essentially became an open source, free and open source software. In 2004, Zabbix 1.0, the first stable version was released. And in 2005, thanks to support of my friends, thanks to support of my, well, ex-boss, ex-employer, Zabbix SIA was established, yeah? And then I hired first engineer. Of course, it was very new to me because I was an engineer. I had nothing to do with marketing, sales, had nothing to do with issuing invoices to a customer. It was really, really a steep learning curve for me, yeah? Because I really needed to educate myself, to learn many new things, yeah? Because at the very beginning, it was just a one-man company and I was the only man doing many, many different things. But then after some time, the company grew to maybe 5 people, 10 people, 20 people. And in 2012, and actually the product and Zabbix, it got some very visible popularity in many parts of the world. For example, in Latin America, in Japan, also in Russia, in some European countries, in the United States. And in 2012, the first I would say the abroad office was opened. It was open office in Tokyo. Then after some time, we opened an office in New York, then in Moscow. And just recently, last year, we opened an office in Porto Alegre to support our operations in Porto Alegre. This is Brazil, to support our operations in Latin America. So right now, what is Zabbix? Zabbix is basically a team of more than 100 team members. Most of us are engineers. We are spread across 5 offices. We are serving thousands of customers. We are B2B business. I will talk about the product a little bit later to explain what Zabbix is about. But it's a B2B business. So our customers are mostly large enterprise companies, and some of them are included into Fortune 500 list, and our customers are in more than 80 countries. So basically, we have a global operations. We do provide 24/7 support and some other services. We'll talk about this a little bit later. At this moment, since we are a small company, yeah, by Latvian standard, we are a mid-sized company. For example, by US standards, we are still a very small company. So in order to operate globally, we actually created the network of our partners, and I'm very grateful to our partners for their trust. They trust in Zabbix. They understand that this is a good product, and the partners help us to deliver services all around the world. So at this moment, we have almost 250 partners in many different countries. Actually, all continents are covered. I would say that nowadays, Zabbix, and that's what I see and that's what I hear from our partners and our customers and users, is the most recognizable Latvian software brand in many countries, at least in Japan, well, I guess in the United States, in Latin America, so almost everywhere. So if you ask people, especially in the IT industry, so what Latvian brand you know? So most of the people will tell you that, well, Zabbix, we know this is a monitoring tool. So Zabbix is quite popular solution nowadays. So what is Zabbix? Now I will be a little bit technical, but I'll try to explain what is Zabbix on a very high level so everyone could understand. So Zabbix is a universal, free and open source enterprise level monitoring solution. Let me try to explain what is a monitoring solution. Monitoring is all about making sure that your infrastructure is working and it's working fine. Yeah. So for example, if you have a kind of a small IT infrastructure in your office, like a few workstations, some servers, some switches, something else, all related to computers, to technology. So Zabbix will be a right tool to verify that everything is working. And if something is not working fine, then Zabbix will tell you what is not working. Yeah. Well, so let me give you some technical details. So Zabbix at this moment, it monitors basically all levels of IT infrastructure. IT infrastructure of big enterprise companies. So it's all about the monitoring of different applications and services and network devices. Well, basically, we support devices from different vendors. So we may collect data out of different services, different type of metrics. That's basically how Zabbix works. So Zabbix collects some information, like let me give you just some simple example, like free space, how much free disk space we have. Yeah. And if actually we have less than, say, 20% of disk space, then Zabbix will tell you, okay, we have a problem or we are running into a problem. So please do something about it. So it's all about monitoring, collecting data. Then Zabbix visualizes data in many different ways. It creates reporting. It has some intelligence about it. It has many different dashboards. So it can present data on geographical maps. So for example, if you monitor different data centers in a different countries, so Zabbix will tell you exactly in what data center we have what kind of issues and what kind of problems, what kind of severity. So that's what is Zabbix all about. And then Zabbix basically tells you and gives you a list of problems, a list of discovered problems. Yes, that, for example, well, if my internet shop is not working fine, or maybe credit card payments do not work, or maybe some ATM is out of money or something like that, or POS machine is also inoperative. And of course, if there's a problem, we can react somehow. So if my eShop is down, then Zabbix will send you, for example, email in Microsoft, some message in Microsoft Teams. Then it could open a ticket in a ServiceNow system that it maybe restart your server automatically to find how to remediate the problem. It may send some Slack message to a manager. So you see, it just escalates the problem to a higher level of your management. It can do it. And then, of course, it's better not to reach like a C-level executive in this case. Well, but now back to business. So the product is all about monitoring. It's all about making sure that the infrastructure, it may consist of hundreds and thousands and tens and hundreds of thousands of devices, is operational. And it's super important for many businesses, because at this moment, well, most of the companies, I would say no exceptions, most of the larger companies, mid-sized companies, they all rely on their IT infrastructure or on the services that are provided by this infrastructure to end users or maybe to internal users. That's why Zabbix is super important from the business point of view. But now let's talk about why companies choose Zabbix or use open source. It's not necessarily related to Zabbix, but it's related to why companies would use free software. Yeah, because well, there are so much proprietary solutions around on the market. Why would we use a free software? Well, I think the reason number one, of course, it's all about cost. Yeah, actually, free software provides exceptionally low total cost of ownership. You use Linux, for example, like open source, the distribution of Linux, and you can scale easily to install Linux on 1 machine, on 10 machines, on 100 or 1,000 machines. And actually it costs nothing except maybe labor cost and maybe the cost of the hardware. Yeah. Another reason businesses understand, and it actually at the very beginning when Linux just started, it was like a kind of a very powerful, I would say, competitive advantage to those companies who started using Linux in early 90s of the last century. Yeah, they've got a very good competitive advantage. It's because they understood that it's a high quality product. It basically comes for free, and it's also very flexible. Yeah, and Zabbix is also flexible. You can use Zabbix to monitor just 5 devices, or you can use Zabbix to monitor hundreds of thousands of devices. Yeah, and it's all included. So it's free and open source. And another reason why would company choose Zabbix, and I think it's really important, is that if those businesses, they need some help from us about Zabbix, they always have a vendor, they have a producer of Zabbix, they have a vendor to talk to communicate to purchase commercial services from. Yeah, so they can communicate to us. They know that Zabbix is being developed by a vendor, by a reliable vendor. We have a network of partners all around the world. So we have many companies around the world that can help with Zabbix related issues, with some deployments, with upgrades. It's all there. And of course, as with most of the high quality open source products, all information is available. Like, for example, documentation, like different how-tos materials, like community resources, like forums, and so on and so forth. Actually, in order to try some free and open source products, it's actually the cost nothing. Yeah, you just, for example, in case of Zabbix, you go to zabbix.com, you download Zabbix, you try it. If you don't like, you don't use it. But if you like, you may continue to use it, and you pay nothing unless you need some commercial services from us or from our partners, because those are very compelling reasons to companies, to businesses, and it absolutely makes sense from a business point of view to use a free open source software. Well, I think you may ask, of course, yes, we are a company. We have some expenses, of course, but what we do, we basically produce free software called Zabbix. So how do we survive? Yeah, I've been asked this question, well, many times. So how do we survive? Because we are producing free and open source software. So nowadays, I don't hear this question often, but maybe like 10 years ago or maybe 15 years ago, it was quite a popular question. So how do we survive? So what do we do? How do we make money? Well, I would say that nowadays, there are more than 50 companies, producers of open source software, making more than $100 million annually. So more than 50 companies. And 8 of them, they're having revenue of more than 1 billion annually. Yeah. So Zabbix, I would say, by those standards, is relatively small companies. There are much more, from financial point of view, much more successful companies in the open source space. And of course, at the very beginning, when I started Zabbix, it was quite a challenge for me, for my colleagues, to find a good business model, because at that point of time, we had a very few examples on the market in 2005. Yeah, very few examples on the market. Maybe the only exception was Red Hat company of a successful companies which were producing open source. So let's look at the different business models. Suppose your vendor, or maybe you're an independent developer. You have your own kind of pet project, which is free and open source. And maybe you're considering to turn your hobby into work. Yeah, that's what has happened with me, because I really enjoyed to develop Zabbix at the early days. It was really my hobby project. And then the dream comes true. I turned my hobby into my work. So now I don't work. I'm always involved in doing some hobby thing. Yeah, you may tell. But anyway, so there are different models around free and open source. One is to introduce commercial services, and this is all about Zabbix. This is the way how we generate the revenue. We provide commercial services around Zabbix. So different types of commercial services. Basically, those companies buy the support agreements of a different level with a different SLA, with 24/7 support, with the global support across the globe. We also provide the training sessions. We have a different training programs like Zabbix Certified Specialist and Zabbix Certified Professional. And obviously, those trainings are not free of charge. Yeah, so we charge we charge our students. We also provide, of course, some consultancy and turnkey solutions. So, for example, if a company wants to deploy a monitoring, they approach us or one of our partners and tell, okay, we need to have a good monitoring solution deployed in our company. So how much it would cost? So we tell them, okay, it will cost you this amount of money. Okay, we need maybe 50 days on-site work of our engineers. That's how it works. On some markets, in Japan, we also provide a unique product, unique for us because it's only provided in Japan. It's called a hardware appliance. So hardware appliance is basically a combination of our software, of Zabbix software, which and hardware. So it's basically out of the box monitoring solution. You buy the hardware appliance and you can use it, and it's really easy to use. So speaking about the number of users, so at this moment it's really hard to say how many Zabbix users around the world, because we don't track our users. We don't have any kind of built-in things to track how many installations we have. Of course, we have some numbers regarding of the downloads of Zabbix, but of course, Zabbix is also included in the many Linux distributions, so it's really hard to estimate it. But I would say that we have approximately starting from 100,000. It's a very kind of pessimistic estimate to around 300,000 of users of Zabbix around the world. And we have about 2 million of downloads of Zabbix annually at this moment. All these numbers are actually growing every year. So every year, starting from 2005, we had more and more employees in the company, my team members. The team grew over the time. And also the financial results, it's around plus 20 up to 30% of revenue. That's our growth rate right now. So Zabbix is a private company. We do not have any investors on board, or we do not have any, VCs on board. So it's all about relatively slow and gradual growth. So we are growing kind of naturally, in a natural way. I will give you another example of another company who is also following so-called kind of service model. It's Percona. Percona is a little bit larger company. All they do mostly, they do provide consultancy and support services for open source databases like MySQL, like probably for Postgres, also for MongoDB. They have also their own products, yeah, like Percona MySQL, Percona MongoDB server. It's all open source, yeah. So it's also actually possible. In case of Zabbix, we have our own product and we provide services on top of our own product. But for example, in case of Percona and some many other companies around the world, including some of our partners who are doing business on top of free software, which is produced by someone else. Yeah, so for example, MySQL server is not produced by Percona. MongoDB is not produced by Percona, or for example, the Postgres is not produced by Percona. It's all community-driven projects, but Percona actually provides some services. They are specialists. They have top professionals so that they can provide a commercial services to their customers. So this is another way how to start your own company without developing your own product. Another business model with the free and open source software is selling subscriptions. Subscriptions, basically, it's very close to the services, but subscription is a little bit different. And I think the best example here is a Red Hat company. So the Red Hat, I think it's the biggest and the largest company in a free and open source world. It was one of the first company who really understood the success of the Linux. And Red Hat actually is a distribution built on top of Linux and some other open source software. And Red Hat has a few products like Red Hat Linux, RHEL. This is probably the most popular product from Red Hat, and JBoss and the OpenShift is gaining popularity now, especially across different big enterprise companies. And traditionally, they provided subscriptions. So if you want to use Red Hat Linux, you basically have to pay for subscription. Subscription fee wouldn't be that expensive, like 300 euros per year for the basic subscription, maybe even less. I don't remember exactly. But for this amount of money, you can install Red Hat Linux on your server and you get some level of commercial support from Red Hat. Yeah, so Red Hat was quite a success. So it generated around $4.5 billion annually. I'm not sure what is the exact number of employees. All information I give you in my presentation, it's all taken from the public sources. Yeah, so the number of employees, it's very close to 10,000 right now. And I think last year, or maybe in the very beginning of this year, Red Hat was acquired by IBM for $34 billion. Yeah, so Red Hat, that was the biggest company in the open source world, which followed subscription model, but it's also the combination. It's not only subscription, of course, but it's also a company that provided many different services to enterprise users. Well, two other business models. One is open core. I'm not sure how many of you heard this term open core. I will try to explain what is open core. Open core is basically when you have two products. One product is free and open source, yeah, and another product is a proprietary one. In many cases, it's called the enterprise version of the free and open source product. Yeah, like say, okay, we'll give you some examples. Yeah, so basically we have two products. One is free and open source, and in most cases it's used to extend the user base. With a free product, it's really easy to extend your user base. and then use also, well, enterprise product to make a business, to try to aim to businesses, to sell, to give some more value to the businesses. And the difference between a free product and a non-free product, proprietary product, is that the proprietary product may contain additional features, additional functionality, which is, well, anticipated mostly by business users, like, for example, support of two-factor authentication, or maybe some high availability options, or better scaling, or some integrations that comes out of the box. Yeah, so proprietary product would be more feature rich, but the free software, it's like kind of underdog. Using if you talk about open core. And SaaS is another way how to monetize a free and open source. Is basically it's all about free software in the cloud. Yeah. So what you do, you basically sell a very simple way of deploying and managing a free application in the cloud, whatever application it could be. I will give you a few examples. Elastic. Elastic is a company who used to have a free and open source product. It's not free and open source anymore. We'll talk about this a little bit later. But it used to have a free and open source product, which is still called Elasticsearch. So it's a kind of enterprise search engine. So if you have different types of data, you may push all this data into Elastic, and then you can do some analytics, you can do some queries, some searches, and so on. And then also Elastic had an enterprise version of the Elasticsearch called Enterprise Search. Yeah. So Elasticsearch was free and open source, and an enterprise search is not free, and it's aimed to businesses, to make a business. So this is where we see this open core model. So two products, one is free and open source, and another proprietary one. And Elastic provided subscription services. They also provide SaaS service. So if you want to have Elastic Enterprise Search up and running, you actually can go to Elastic and ask them to run it in their cloud. So it's just a very fast way how to deploy Elastic in the cloud. But unfortunately, or maybe fortunately for Elastic, I have no idea, but at some point of time, Elastic decided that they will move from free or open source license, and they moved to kind of proprietary license called SSPL, if I remember correctly. And the reason why they moved from free and open source, because they understood that there is a kind of a great competition from a public clouds like AWS. So AWS provided actually the SaaS service on top of Elastic, because Elastic is free and open source, they can do it. And Elastic understood that, okay, the more they invest into free product, the more they basically invest into competitor, into AWS. All right, but anyway, Elastic is also, I would say, very, very successful company with a revenue more than 600,000 $600 million US dollars, and with number of employees of more than 2,000. Another quick example, Enterprise DB. It's also example of the open core model, and they actually provide a product which is called Postgres. This is a relational database. So think of Postgres like a free and open source replacement of Oracle. Yeah. And Postgres is a product which is being developed by community. Okay, so it's a community-driven project. Of course, Enterprise DB invests resources in making Postgres a better solution, but also they provide another product and develop another product which is called EDB Postgres Advanced Server. So this is a commercial product for basically for those companies who want to migrate or move from Oracle. The main competitive advantage of the Enterprise DB that they provide and advertise is basically they're cheaper than Oracle, and they basically provide kind of a good compatibility level with the Oracle API. So it's really kind of easy to migrate from Oracle, which is considered to be very expensive proprietary solution. So these companies can move to Enterprise DB. So the Enterprise DB also provides subscription services, and they also provide SaaS, it's a database in the cloud. And it's also very, very successful and well-known company. Well, of course, it's difficult. So say if you have a free product, a free and open source product, and you want to choose the model to monetize it, it's difficult, and it's really depends on your goals. Yeah. I will give you just a few examples. For example, well, Zabbix. Let's take, for example, Zabbix. My goal is probably not about fast growth. Yeah, it's not about kind of expansion, kind of business expansion. It's more about having more users. I really enjoy the fact that we are building a good product, that this product could be used by many people around the world. And for me, I would say that the metric of the success is the number of users we have. It's not about number of customers or market growth, yeah, or market share. Market share is always valued as a revenue generated by your customer, yeah, by your customers. But I'm more interested in users. I really enjoy the fact that Zabbix is being used by more and more users as time goes. Some companies, especially startup companies, they are very much interested in very fast growth. And in this case, if you want to have especially, well, some external money or external financing on board, VCs on board, of course, your investors would be interested in a good revenue and financial results. So in this case, the best model, which is very anticipated by investors, is open core, because it's really easy to scale open core model. Yeah, so we have a free product. You already maybe have a big user base, quite a large user base, so that you introduce another product which is not for free. So basically, you monetize on top of your user base. Another choice, like there is a very popular software which is called LIETAS. Maybe you're aware of it or maybe not. And it's used absolutely everywhere with, I don't know how many billions of devices are powered by this software. It's actually part of all mobile phones, the servers, Linux distributions, Windows distributions, whatever, LIETAS. So the creator and author of this library, its library, he actually enjoys what he is doing, and he is absolutely fine developing this library with just the support of a few companies and a few contributors. So it really depends on your goal, what you'd like to achieve. Do you want to have more users? Do you want to build a successful business? Or do you have some other goals? Well, and if you ask me, what are the maybe kind of characteristic of the successful open source project? I would say it all starts with a high quality product. Okay, you need to have a high quality product, of course, and you should think of it as a kind of long-term involvement. Yeah, it's really hard to make it in one day. So it takes some years to really build successful free and open source software. And this free and open source software needs to solve some real problems. Yeah, It's not about making me happy, but it should be about making other people happy, actually solving their problems. And of course, I think maybe the most important superpower of free and open source software is word of mouth marketing. So the software is good, it will be marketed and spread by itself, yeah, because, well, I know that the software is good, I share it with someone else, my friend shares with someone else, and then it may happen that at some point you will realize that the whole world is using your free and open source software, and you did nothing except maybe a good product to make it happen. And of course, the community is super important. Yeah, if you have a good product and you communicate to your users actively, then you'll have a good community at the end. And the principles, well, it's super important as well. You have to stick to some principles, to some values, and be honest and open in a communication to your users and to your community members. Okay, and very quickly, maybe, what do we do at Zabbix? Of course, we are very active talking to the community. We have our source code available on gitzabbix.com. We have a forum. We are quite active on the social networks. We produce newsletters, webinars, meetups, technical newsletters. We have actually the public feature request tracker, then where basically our users can vote for some feature requests. And we have open bug tracker. And also, of course, we do some commercial activity, like participate in different exhibitions, not so much lately due to COVID. And we also have our summit and conferences all around the world. And by the way, Zabbix Summit is just around the corner. So after a couple of weeks, Zabbix Online Summit will be there. So very welcome to participate if you're interested. Well, and of course, the Zabbix roadmap, it's also, the information is publicly available, so everyone can see and understand what we are working on right now and what are the future plans for Zabbix. Well, and as a developer, you may ask, why develop free and open source software? There are a number of reasons how I see it and why it's so fun for me. Of course, it is fun. So, but why it is fun and it's really enjoyable and really nice and kind of relaxing experience, I would say. Because when you develop in free and open source software, you get a very super fast feedback cycle. Any changes you make in your open source software, they are immediately noticed by your users. So if you do something good or something bad, well, expect the feedback just 1 hour after release of your software. And really, it makes you feel good, I would say. Yeah, I used to write a kind of a commercial software before in my previous life, I would say. And I know that you do something and you never know how the piece of code you wrote is being used by what company, or maybe it's not used at all. Yeah, but again, when you write some open source software, you know your users, you know your community members, and it's really a very good feeling that something that you do, and the result of your work, you share it with the whole world. So people in Europe, people in Africa, people in America, people in Japan, well, Australia, New Zealand, you name it, they can use it. Yeah. So the result of your work shared across the absolutely all people all around the world. Well, and why use free software? Okay, maybe I'll repeat myself, but again, it is free. It's very easy to deploy and adopt. In many cases, the free software much better than commercial alternatives. And for business users, it's super important that it really eliminates in many cases the vendor lock-in. Yeah, so if I use a free software, I can actually get services related to the free software from many different companies, not necessarily only from one vendor. And the access to the access to the source code, actually, it's very important to some industries, especially when we're talking right now about the security, when we are talking about the security audits, having open source is an advantage. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for your time. I hope you got something interesting from my talk, and let's see if you have any questions. So if you have any questions, please ask them using questions capabilities of the Zoom, probably. Let's see if you have any questions. I don't see any yet.
Alexei, we have one question. As far as I see, what date is Zabbix 6 LTS is being released?
Okay, so it's not released yet. So it's the next major release of Zabbix. It will be released very, very soon, but I don't know yet when exactly. Well, ready when it's ready.
Great answer. What the next question is, what is the most prominent feature of Zabbix 6? Gins Neymanis is asking.
Well, there are many features. If you ask me, I would say that probably we invested a lot in the machine learning capabilities and anomaly detection. So Zabbix can actually detect problems in a much smarter way right now. So I would say machine learning, some statistical analysis. Also, we have introduced support of the high availability cluster for Zabbix server. Yeah, this is just a few features I'm very happy about in Zabbix 6.0.
Thanks for that. Miroslav Mishov asks, when trainings for Zabbix 6 would be available?
Well, trainings for Zabbix 6 will be available just after release of Zabbix 6.0. Yeah, so again, very, very soon.
Yeah, and as we heard earlier, when it's ready, it's ready.
Absolutely.
Okay. Do all open source companies should use open source software?
Well, it's very interesting question, because when Zabbix company started, it's been like 15 years ago. I tend to use open source software for everything, like Linux everywhere, on workstations, on servers, maybe open technology absolutely everywhere. But nowadays, I would say that I would choose the right tool for the right job. Yeah. So, for example, my laptop right now, it's a Mac. Yeah, it's running basically Mac operating system. We use Zoom. Zoom is also a proprietary software. Yeah, we also use a Microsoft Office internally. We also use Office 365 internally in a Zabbix company, because it really helps for better collaboration between different team members, which are spread across the globe. So I wouldn't say kind of it's a must for open source companies to stay fully on open source. I don't think it's possible at all in some cases.
Thank you. And then user writes, thanks, Alexei, you do great work and help many people in the world. So
thank you very much.
Your users are grateful for your job.
I appreciate
your hobby,
it.
As you said.
Yeah, it is. It is really, yeah. It's never ending learning for me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because as company grows and as we have a bigger customers, we have a new challenges, and yeah, we always need to think what to do next, find a different solutions to a different problem. So it's really a very interesting journey for me and my colleagues.
Okay, I can't see any more questions in the chat. Yeah, just one more. So great to see Zabbix growing. Good luck in the future, and thanks for the presentation. So that was exactly what I was going to say. So thank you. You find the time to be speaker in our series of events.
I would encourage our participants to follow LATA and wait for other events. We are planning next events already, and the information will be available in our electronic channels. So that's it. It's already past 5 o'clock, so tea time is over, and let's enjoy our evening or return to job.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me today. Thank you very much.
Yeah.